how do you manage or even digest that this is the sticky floor, but then when I get to the next place, I'm going to be on the red carpet? How do you move through those two things? Because it's hard to get unstuck and to see that freedom.
Well, I'm going to tell you something, and it's not like the best news ever, but it's important that we know this, is that sticky floors never go away. I'll tell you this great story. I was interviewing business coaches not too long ago for myself, and I was talking with a woman, and she was asking me about imposter syndrome. And I was like, you know what? I'm pretty good there. Like, I haven't had imposter syndrome in a while. Like, I've done all these amazing things. And she goes, great. Why aren't you charging your executive coaching clients $40,000? And when I about fell out my seat, and I said, oh, no, not me. I couldn't do that. Never. I would never be able to try. Light bulb. Imposter syndrome. I might not be able to charge that today, but I can work towards charging that in the future. But it just shows you something that I thought I had totally conquered. Someone presented me a new challenge, and holy shit, I was right back in it.
The idea of job security is outdated as a landline. If you haven't been in a search for a while, it's probable you will at some point, by choice or not. Most executives admit to staying way too long, or sense what's coming and justify staying anyway. There's another reason. The faulty belief that navigating to what's next will inevitably be worse and has to suck. Screw that. Lauren Greif has spent a lifetime in corporate and executive search, calling bullshit on stale career advice that most still use. This is Career Blast in a Half, the career podcast for executives ready to cut past outdated career advice to fuel your outcomes now. So let's go.
Hello. And we are back, and we are actually back live right now in the exciting cosmopolitan area of Raleigh, North Carolina. And I came here to meet with somebody that has always been like a great role model and inspiration, especially for women. And you know who I'm talking about, but in case you don't, welcome to you, Erica Rooney. We are so happy to have you at Career Blast and a Half today. And we're going to talk about something, you guys, this is a big one. I'm going to call it 000 or OOO, which is other opinions, other people's opinions. I think I said it, overvaluing others' opinions. There you go. And so Erica has been a chief people officer. She is also the author of this incredible book that I have loved called, we're here live, Glass Ceilings and Sticky Floors. And so I want you to help us, Erica, in your introduction to tell us about you and how you got to talk about sticky floors in relationship to this metaphor of glass ceilings.
Oh my gosh, I love it, and I love that we get to do this IRL, y'all. This never, ever happens. So Lauren, thank you for having me. I'm just so thrilled to be here. But yeah, this whole concept of glass ceilings and sticky floors. You know, I was always very ambitious, always very growth-minded, sometimes to my detriment, sometimes when I didn't need to be. And one of my first stories of that is I graduated with my bachelor's and my master's degree from the University of Florida in 4 years. And so then, of course, I said, well, now I need to get my PhD. And I sat down with my academic advisor, and she said, okay, so you want to talk about getting your PhD. Why do you want to do this? And I was like, well, it's the next step. It's what I should do. And she said, do you want to do research? And I said, absolutely not. She said, do you want to teach? And I said, no, I don't think so. She's like, then why are you going to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on a degree that you don't need? And all I could think of was so that someone could call me doctor. And that wasn't a good enough reason, right? But that was like my first inkling that I was so ambitious, probably more so than most people. And so I did what any ambitious, hardworking, good little girl would do. And that was I did what everybody said I should do, right? I graduated with honors. I got my first job. I bought my first home. I married my husband. I had 2.5 kids, and I climbed the corporate ladder all the way to the C-suite, right? And I get up there. This is what we've been working for. This is everything in my life has led to this moment, and I am miserable. I am unhappy. I am mean to my husband. I am short with my kids. I am drinking way too much. And I'm like, this is what I sacrificed so much for? Like, this is what I worked so hard for? But every day I would wake up and I would do the same damn thing over and over and over because it was what I should be doing. And that was all I knew. And I kind of entered this dark place, right? A little period of depression, shall we say, right? Call a spade a spade. I was not happy. And of course, that only meant that I was drinking more and trying to numb up all of those feelings. And I was just so tired of thinking that this was it, right? And this was my limit. This was my glass ceiling per se, right? I'd already shattered the one that everybody told me I'd never be able to shatter, but I had already placed this limit above myself, my own glass ceiling that I hadn't even recognized that was keeping me stuck. And it was keeping me from happiness. It was keeping me from joy. It was keeping me from loving my life, honestly, right? Which is the whole reason we're here, is to love our life and love ourselves and love what we do. And I started just digging in and doing a lot of research. Because at the same time, being a woman in tech, right, male-dominated industry, I was like, there's all these bullshit stats out here. Like it's going to be 132 years for pay equity, right? And that women face a confidence gap, a mentorship gap, a leadership gap. We have the broken rung. We have all of these things that are against us. And I was like, you know what? I'm not here for that. And it wasn't my story either, right? I shattered the glass ceiling. I became the breadwinner. So I was sitting here saying it can't just be the system that has to change for us to have equality, right? To be seen as equals. And I said, what if it's not this ceiling, right? But what if it's what's inside of us? What if it's something internal that's keeping us stuck? And that's where I kind of came up with this whole concept of the glass ceilings and the sticky floors. And if we can just move past a lot of the barriers that keep us stuck, we can then push through the systemic barriers that exist today. And that is the whole story behind the glass ceilings and sticky floor concepts.
So before we get into this question just occurred to me, actually, when I was in the ladies' room. So why are there more women who have sticky floors, but men seem to have slippery floors?
I love this, right? And I'm going to say that's a perception, right? There are plenty of men out there who are very well stuck. I would even say that there's probably more than we realize it because they just don't voice it as much as women do.
Okay, fair.
But in a lot of my keynotes, right, which are very women-focused and women-centered, especially when you hear the title Glass Ceilings and Sticky Floors, a lot of times people automatically say, like, this is not a women's conference. And I say, I get that, right? I get that. But this is also for the 73% of men who struggle with perfectionism, right? It's for the 72% of men who struggle with knowing their true worth. And it's for the 100% of men that come from a woman or have at least one woman in their life that they know and care about. So it really is for everyone. But men, too, struggle with perfectionism, imposter syndrome. They struggle with right? Overvaluing others' opinions. I like to call it FOPO, right? The fear of other people's opinions.
Yes.
But we all struggle with those things. But I do think that as women, we tend to express those things more. And I do think because we are growing up in the society that we are growing up in, that we are living in, that there are systemic issues and societal expectations that have led us to act and interact in certain ways.
So this is ideal because this sticky floor is really a metaphor for a lot of things that are keeping the gunk on the bottom of your shoe, which you talked about, right? And in many cases, and I've experienced it, I know clients have experienced, we've all experienced it, it doesn't just feel like something that can flake off, right? It feels like it's like crazy glue. Once it's on there, it's permanent and you are stuck. So you talked about imposter syndrome. You mentioned perfectionism. I'd love you to share what the sticky floor of your FOPO is all about, and also, like, help us understand how we balance between having somebody share some really important feedback and then over-indexing over on the side of, well, that's what they said, and that's the gospel.
And it's a hard balance to find, right? And so when I'm thinking about FOPO and like the fear of other people's opinions, I want you to ask yourself, like, what are you worried about? What are you concerned about? Are you concerned that they're not going to like you? Are you concerned that they're going to think your idea is ridiculous? Like, dig down deep and think about, why do you care? You know, because when we talk about FOPO, it's not just always about the big decisions, right? And that's generally where we see it come out, but it's also about the little opinions, right? Have you ever introduced yourself a different way when you've been in a room with people who maybe don't know you, right? How do you present yourself? It all changes, right? And so when you think about FOPO and how you're showing up in the world, if you're truly doing it for the wrong reasons, right? Because you're worried about what that person will think of you. They'll think less of you. They'll think you're not qualified. They'll think you're not smart enough, not good enough. Those are the wrong kind of opinions to care about. But when we're talking about feedback, right? And that's where it's more like, yes, feedback is also an opinion, right? And everybody has one, and they're not all good. I tell people, number one, do you truly believe in your heart, that this person has your best interest in their heart as well? Because there are plenty of people out there who know you and love you, and they sometimes mess up and give you bad advice, or they say it wrong and you take it differently, right? So ask yourself, does this person have my best interest at heart? And if they do, take it, right? Take that advice with a grain of salt, but then check that advice against your core values. Because what works for them may not work for you, right? It is always important too to ask yourself, has this person been where I want to go? Have they done what I want to do?
Right.
And if they don't, and they haven't, don't take that advice.
Exactly. I'm so glad that you said that, right? Which is perhaps paraphrased with consider the source, right? Consider your source. And also, I think that the real piece here is that in many cases, we're taking those opinions for the wrong reasons, right? And I hear this also. I'm very curious to hear how you would think about this. People who are our audience, right? They're in transition. They don't want to have people think badly of them because maybe they've been laid off. Maybe they are people who are in a place of indecision, and also they want to, and understandably, preserve their dignity and self-respect. So to come out and say, well, I'm not working right now, sounds very different from, I'm on a hiatus, or I'm taking a personal sabbatical. And all of those things there's nothing wrong with them, but I think what you're getting at is who are you trying to guard yourself against some other people's opinion? Like, will they think ill of you because you've been laid off like the rest of the world? Or is it just a wound that you are just in a place that you need to protect, which also is extremely
And you have
valid.
to consider the situation, right? Because being able to say, I don't care about what anybody else thinks, comes from a place of privilege as well, right? If you are in a job interview and you are like one rent check away from being homeless, you are going to say whatever you need to say to get that job.
Hell yeah.
Right? That is financial security. So when you say, listen, it all comes from that place of privilege. So number one, get your safety checked first, right? You have to meet all your basic needs. Then you can worry more about, what are we doing here? What's going on with worrying about other people's opinions, right? Is it coming from my own inner wounds, or what do I need to do? And I tell people that all the time. So knowing the source, knowing the situations, checking your privilege and where it exists, and then figure out what that next step is for you.
So this is all fine and well, right? And I'm all in on this. However, there are a lot of sticky floors that have been literally cemented down into our world that are very hard and systemic to override. We know about ageism. We know about the perception of women in male-dominated fields it must have been really challenging because there's all kinds of perceptions in that area. Or even when you were in the job market, to really be able to navigate through people who are significantly younger and the perceptions of what that can mean in your career.
I'll give you a great one.
Please.
When I was a young mother, right, and I had a infant and a 3-year-old at home, I had a 45-minute commute into the office So roughly an hour and a half where I'm in the car driving every single day away from my kids. And if I got stuck in that rush hour traffic, that time could double. So there were many days when my work was done, everything was set, I would try to, quote, sneak out at 4:30. And I was pulled aside and told by a leader that people noticed I was leaving, right? I think that's a stupid opinion, right? But I also recognize the fact, again, there's that safety, that I need to safeguard my job and I need to live by the culture and the rules of the system I'm in, right? So I had to kind of say, okay, and I had to take that opinion, which I didn't think was a good one, but I had to take it at face value and I had to take it with a grain of salt and recognize, okay, this is not a place where I can do those things, right? And then I get to make the decision, do I stay or do I go?
I am blowing the lid off of our best kept secret, our 30-day blast program. Yeah, you heard it. 30 days. We have seen so much success for this program that past clients have landed in that 30 days and increased their compensation 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, over 100%. Now, not everybody lands and earns that much in 30 days, but my point is it prepares you. And in 30 days, if you're not out of there with a changed mindset and changed clear and simple ways to be able to navigate the market this year, then we'll gladly refund your misery and you can go back to applying now. Check out the link below for the next 30-day blast, and we would love to have you there because we live for your success, and that's what's really important. See you then. And so in that, you made... What did you make? What decision?
I stayed for a while.
You stayed for a while, and it was like, it is what it is?
And you know what I did? And this is just for any company out there listening that thinks butts in the seats is important. Y'all, I scrolled People magazine on my computer. I checked Facebook. I looked at my email. You know, I think Twitter was a thing back then. But I wasn't working because I was done. I can't help but I'm so productive, you know? But I did to stick with the perception and to make it so that people thought I was working and working hard and being a team player and doing all the things. I put my time in. And later, you know, I hit the road.
So what would you say to people that are in these situations where the floor is just, it's set, man. You are not going to be able to change that. How do you metabolize and be able to adjust to that? Is that just a point in time that you're going to basically suck it up, or
sometimes yes, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes it totally depends. You know, I would love to sit here and say that anytime something went against my values or anytime I didn't like someone's opinion that I got the hell out of there, but that's not true, right? Like, we do live in a society where you have to play by the rules sometimes.
Yes, and so that also spills over into other people's opinion when you are getting leadership buy-in.
Yes.
How do you navigate that? Because that is tricky, man. That is really tricky, and I'm sure you see it, and I see it too, right? I hear this over and over and over again. You know, the reason why I'm leaving is because there is a disconnect between what leadership wants and what I believe are important for me to stand by. And this right now is blowing up all over the world of DEI.
Yes.
Right? This is really a hot issue. And so is that like, you know, either suck it up or make your bed and you're going to have to lie?
I think it's your prerogative, right? Like, one of the most beautiful things in this world is that we all have a choice, and you have to evaluate what those choices are. You can choose to stay, or you can choose to start looking for another job. You know, I don't advocate just like burning the house down and throwing all your papers in the air and storming out and quitting because you don't agree with something that they're doing. Be smart about it, right? Get your ducks in a row. Do what you need to do and then exit. Make that game plan, though, because just setting those intentions will help you get through the suck.
Right, because it would seem that, and I've been in these kinds of situations, you're playing by the rules, but there's something else that's pulling you away. So you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. You're damned because you're signing up, or you know there's the other fallout. So how do you manage or even digest that this is the sticky floor, but then when I get to the next place, I'm going to be on the red carpet. Like, how do you move through those two things? Because it's hard to get unstuck and to see that freedom.
Well, I'm going to tell you something, and it's not like the best news ever, but it's important that we know this, is that sticky floors never go away, right? New level, new devil, my friend. New level, new devil. And I'll tell you this great story. I was interviewing business coaches not too long ago for myself, and I was talking with a woman, and she was asking me about imposter syndrome. And I was like, you know what? I'm pretty good there. Like, I haven't had imposter syndrome in a while. Like, I've done all these amazing things. And she goes, great. Why aren't you charging your executive coaching clients $40,000? And when I about fell out my seat, and I said, oh, no, not me. 40, no. I couldn't do that. Never. I would never be able to try. Light bulb. Imposter syndrome. Mm-hmm. I might not be able to charge that today, right? But I can work towards charging that in the future, you know? But it just shows you something that I thought I had totally conquered. You know, someone presented me a new challenge, and holy shit, I was right back in it. You know, so those sticky floors show up. You just gotta always
go away.
You always gotta work through them.
And so, okay, I can live with the fact that they never go away, but what are the best frameworks, and we're going to talk about your SNAP framework, that we can use that talks about how you manage it? Because there's lots of things that aren't going to go away. By the way, I'm 5'4", and I want to be 5'7", and the only way that I'm going to be managing that is either wearing heels, which I don't really do, or be able to just have a very tall personality. So how do you manage the truism that it's not going away? And tell us about your SNAP framework.
Oh my gosh. So the SNAP framework, I love this because it is so easy, right? It's so simple, but it's not easy, right? And I'll tell you what it stands for. SNAP stands for stop, name it, ask and answer, and pivot. And I'll walk you through each step.
Please.
Yes. But the S in SNAP stands for stop and take note, right? And that is take note of the physical sensations in your body, because often these limiting beliefs, these sticky floors, these toxic behaviors, they live in our unconscious mind. And that's just our system and our body's way of reacting and trying to protect ourselves, right? From way back in the Stone Age. And, you know, some people may think this is crazy, but like evolution is a real thing. And we used to have to protect ourselves, fight or flight, right? This is how we've evolved. So your body keeps score, right? If you've ever felt a racing heart or clammy hands, sweaty palms, the weight of anxiety on your chest, those are all physical symptoms and signals that something is not right. So when you stop and just take note of, whoa, something's not feeling right here, that's actually a pattern interrupt. And it stops you from doing that spiral where you just keep going down. And it's the why me, why this, everything's bad, I'm not good enough spiral, right? So once you've stopped, you then move to the name it. And that's very important because when you name something, you actually take your power back over it. And studies show that when you can name a feeling or an emotion or a sticky floor, it actually reduces the stress and the anxiety that you feel from those things.
So the sticky floor doesn't go away, but it shrinks.
Yes, it shrinks. It gets a little cleaner, guys. It gets a little cleaner.
It's like in the dollhouse.
Yes. Yeah. And then the A stands for ask and answer some very deep and personal questions.
Give me one.
And this is where you're doing the hard work, right? And my two favorite, I've got to give you two.
Please.
Is this thought helpful?
Yes.
Because most of the time it is not, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not good enough. I'm not, qualified enough. I'm not pretty enough. None of those are good thoughts, right? And is this thought true? Mm-hmm. So is it helpful and is it true? Those are my first two go-to questions. Then you can dig deeper and you can think about, why do I feel this way? Was there something that, really showed me or signaled to me that this was how I needed to react to protect myself? And the deeper you go, right, peeling back the layers of the onion, the more you're going to understand yourself, right? Which knowing yourself is such a huge piece to this process. But the more you can understand about yourself, then you can move to the final step, which is the P, the pivot, and it's simply a reframe. It is looking at something just a little bit differently, right? And I'm not going all rainbows and butterflies and toxic positivity on you here because I can't stand that, right? Because sometimes life is shit. But what I want you to try to go with your pivot is not from negative to positive, but from negative to neutral, right? Just get yourself to that neutral thinking so that you can get curious and you can start to explore and just open up the door, crack the door open for a little bit of possibility. And when that possibility starts to come through, you can lean into that pivot so much faster.
So I love that this is called snap, but how do you make the snaps really snap?
Like how do you make the glue stick?
Well, how do you, because I don't know about any of you guys, but when I'm in one of these places, that is the hardest thing. And actually I got to practice yesterday because I had two huge things that were happening both at the same time. And getting to a snap place, how does it become closer in where I know that this is my solution? How do I get to that place? Because while you said that it's very simple, like when I'm in the middle of that thing, it's hard to access.
Yeah, and sometimes you got to go through the mess, right? And that's what I tell people. Like, you can't beat yourself up because you can't literally just snap out of it, right? Sometimes you have to go through the process. You are never going to know the highs if you don't experience the lows. But what I will promise you this is with the SNAP framework, if you do it and you really spend the time peeling back the layers of your onion, you get to recognize those moments faster, and then you start to move through them quicker. Because I still experience a lot of these sticky floors all the time, right? All the chapters in my book are all sticky floors that I have been through, okay?
Exactly.
Written from experience, guys. And now when I see those bubble up, I know exactly what I need to go to. And you said, how do you do this? I've got a couple things that work for me, right?
Please.
One of them, it is affirmations and like words that anchor me, right? I'm a big fan of word of the year. Right? My word of the year this year is trust, because a lot of my sticky floors come from like, oh my gosh, this is my first full year in business. What am I doing? I'm going to make so many mistakes. Trust in yourself. And you'll see I have a necklace on that says trust. And that is just my visual daily reminder to ground myself and anchor in that truth. So that helps ground me. I'm also a big fan of what I call the heck yeah journal. Some people like to call it the fuck yeah journal. Call it what you want. But this is where you go down, and every single day you have to write down one thing that you are proud of yourself for accomplishing. A heck yeah moment. And it can be big, it can be small, right? But they're things that mean something to you. And I do this because I'm a science girly. I love evidence. And so when I'm stuck in that moment of like, oh, I could never, or not me, I can go back to my journal and I can see that I have written proof. I have a log that I can do hard things, that I can do things that make me uncomfortable. And that gives me more confidence to then step into that next level, whatever that is. So those are two of my favorite like go-to exercises that anyone can do anywhere, anytime, and it's free. So just do them.
Just do them. I want to take this into some real like immediacy, which is we are in a state of just unbelievable uncertainty. Unbelievable uncertainty. And if it's not every single day, people will say to me, oh my God, I can't believe how much change is happening. What are the perhaps most uncommon sticky floors that people are maybe not even acutely aware of? Because I love that you covered the common ones, but what are the other more termite-like sticky floors that are creeping into the crevices that we should be aware of, especially in times of great uncertainty?
Oh my gosh, what a time to be alive. And I say that with a lot of sarcasm. But what I also find really interesting about this book and the work is I started this book 2 years ago, right? 2 years ago, and it is more relevant today than it was then, which is shocking to me, right? But the political landscape, the world, we're in a very just crazy place right now. And so when we are talking about sticky floors and the most uncommon ones and all of that, I think about my sticky floor of wine, honestly, because alcohol and addiction are a very sticky floor, right? But it's socially acceptable to drink, right? And if you don't drink, you're the one with the problem, right? Or you're pregnant. It's one of the two. But you have no other reason not to drink. And I grew up in a college town where drinking was the normal, right? I drank on my birthday, your birthday, Jesus's birthday. I drank when we were happy. I drank when we were sad. It's what we did, right? And I've learned all this through asking and answering some very pivotal questions. But I also learned that you drink when you're stressed because it numbs it out. It covers it up. It makes it so you can go to sleep, and it's nice to be able to forget, when you have all those struggles and work is so stressful. And so every day the stress would grow and the problems would get bigger. And you know what else got bigger? My glasses of wine. And it's very easy to hide because I'm very successful on the outside, right? Nobody saw, all my boxes of wine, because guess what? Boxes are easier to hide than bottles. Nobody really knows how much you're drinking there. And so a lot of people never knew this was a thing for me. And it wasn't until I hit my own proverbial rock bottom, right, that we all hit when we make the decision that we're not going to do this anymore. And that was the turning point for me. Like, that was the sticky floor that also really pushed me into doing all of this other work, because I finally stopped numbing myself and I started tuning into what was causing me pain and what was causing me happiness. But a lot of people don't see alcohol, wine, addictions. And I'm not just talking about like alcohol and drugs. There's addictions to many things that will keep you real fucked up for a real long time, right? And so for me, mine was wine, but it's not something that somebody would be like, I see how that was keeping you stuck, because I was in the C-suite,
I'm so grateful that you mentioned that, because that is a very permissible sticky floor that you've just identified it, but also because it has, and as I say this as somebody who's nearly 20 years sober, it sends you all the messages that you are more productive, that you are more social, that you are more attractive, that you are more successful.
You have more fun.
More fun, better sense of humor. So all of these messages, again, other people's opinions of how you are in that state can also really conflict with a lot of the limitations that are actually going on, because at some other point in time, you're the only one that's waking up with a hangover.
Well, and talking about other people's opinions, that was a huge issue for me when it came to my drinking, because I did not want anyone to think I had a problem. I did not want anybody to think that it was an issue, that I was not in control, right? So for me, it was very important that I projected myself as a certain way, which was not someone who was pouring herself bottles of wine a night. And so absolutely this fear of other people's opinions poured in, right? Mm-hmm. And then when I quit drinking, that fear poured in. What are people going to think about me? They're going to think I have a problem there, which, by the way, who cares, right? But back then, I really did care. Mm-hmm. I did not want anyone to know. And that's why it also kept me stuck for so long, right? I was so ashamed by it that I kept it hidden. I was so worried about what other people would think, and that actually exacerbated the problem. And it wasn't until I shed light on it and I started talking about it more that smaller, right? The fear of other people's opinions and you also get out there and you start to recognize that everything I thought people would think about me for admitting that I was struggling wasn't even true. It wasn't even happening. People were thrilled for me. They were excited. They want to know how I did it. They want to do it too, right? But I would have never been able to experience that had I not leaned into that sticky floor and actually worked through all of those messages that you said, we get. You're more fun, you network better. How do you go to a birthday party without drinking? You have to work through all those. But when you do, you get to this place where those others' opinions don't matter because you are so sure in your decision.
So, Erica, I'm going to wrap up a couple of things that you've said, because I think that there is so much juice behind this. And I know that, we're human, right? So we care what other people think. It would be a lie to say, I don't care at all, or you don't care at all. And especially if you are in a career transition, when your identity is at a threshold of real challenge. But I really, really want to just go back to a couple of things, specifically with that SNAP framework, and really talk about getting to the place where you are practicing that SNAP framework. And please repeat those steps for us.
Stop. Take note of the physical sensations in your body. Name your sticky floor. Ask and answer some deep and personal questions to lead you to why are we thinking this way? And then the P is your pivot.
Fantastic. Where can we find you? Where should we get this book?
Yes, find me on LinkedIn Hit up my website, www.ericaandersonrooney.com. You can also join in on this conversation. I have a digital online community for women called Her Collective, where they all come in and we talk through our sticky floors together. We work through them in the professional setting and in the personal setting. So if you are a woman looking for camaraderie and people who get it, join us in Her Collective and just send me a message. Say you heard me on this podcast. I would love to chat.
Wonderful. And for everyone today, thank you so much for joining us. You know, I have to tell you, you make this podcast. There's no question about it. I want to thank you for your wonderful listening ears. And I would also ask you, please follow this podcast. Ask a friend to follow this podcast. And if you're really feeling it, please write a podcast review, because that is one of the most important ways that we get this out there and that we get to stay in the top 1.5% and maybe even move a little bit further. So thank you again and have a great and wonderful day. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for joining today. We appreciate your listening ears. Big time. We ask this: use these tools, not tomorrow, right now, and share them by spreading the love, leaving us a rating and subscribe so you don't miss the next career blast in a half. Most of all, thank you for you.